James Coburn was Hollywood's toughest action star. He did his own stunts, threw real knives, and never backed down from danger. But in 1979, something happened on set that changed everything. His hands swelled to twice their size overnight. For 10 years, he vanished from Hollywood. Fans thought he retired. The truth was darker. He was hiding a secret so painful, he couldn't even button his shirts. What destroyed the man who seemed indestructible? The answer will shock you. James Harrison Coburn III came into the world on August 31, 1928, in Laurel, Nebraska, a tiny place where fewer than 1,000 people tried to stretch every dollar. His father ran a small garage that barely survived through the early 1930s, and his mother taught at a local school to keep food on the table. She was strict but warm, and often read him Swedish folk tales so he could escape the hard days around him. The Great Depression hung over everything, and the open fields around Laurel felt wide but empty, almost as if the land itself was tired. These early days taught him the value of grit, because every family he knew had to fight a little harder just to stay afloat. When he was only 5, the Dust Bowl pushed his family to the edge. In 1933, his father's garage collapsed under the weight of the drought and the depression, and they packed whatever they owned into an old truck and headed toward California. The trip took weeks, passing through towns filled with hungry people and boarded-up shops. By the time they reached Compton in 1933, they were worn down and broke. They rented a small house that barely held together. They ate cheap meals and shivered through nights without heat. His mother worked odd jobs, his father searched for anything that paid, and young James carried the weight of seeing his parents worn out before sunset. Compton in those years was packed with struggling families, many of them immigrants trying to rebuild their lives. James learned early how to survive. At age 8, he rode a rusty bicycle around town, delivering newspapers for a few cents each day. Street fights were normal, and he picked up toughness, the same way other kids picked up games. He helped his father at repair shops and listened to the steady rhythm of tools hitting metal. Nights were softer, though. His mother lit a lamp and read him stories about forests, giants, and talking animals, stories far from the rough streets outside. He absorbed every detail, watching how people acted, how they talked, how they carried their hopes and fears. Those early observations later helped him slip into complicated characters with ease. By the time he was 10, he could weld car parts and repair engines like someone twice his age. His father's hands were always blistered, but he never slowed down, and James learned to match that pace. The family ate beans for weeks when money ran out, and the struggle left a deep mark on him. He hated the feeling of being trapped by poverty and promised himself he would find a way out. His father's determination became part of his own nature, pushing him even years later when the odds looked impossible. In 1940, everything cracked open. A bank foreclosure wiped out what little they had left. His father broke under the pressure and attempted suicide. James was 12 when it happened, and the shock of that day stayed with him for life. He carried the memory quietly, letting it color the kinds of roles he later chose. He was drawn to men who were strong on the outside, but wounded on the inside. Men who kept moving forward, even when something inside them felt shattered. After that moment, he worked extra jobs, shielded his mother from whatever he could, and forced himself to grow up faster than a boy should. As he moved into his teenage years, Compton Junior College became the place where something inside him began to shift. He stood at 6 feet 2 inches, easy to notice, but it was his voice that changed everything. In 1948, he was asked to narrate a short film about local floods. When he spoke, the deep and gravelly tone startled everyone. Students rewound the film again and again because his narration didn't sound like a student project. It sounded real. It sounded lived in. For the first time, he felt what it meant to hold people's attention with only his voice. And the idea of acting began to grow inside him. At 16, he fell in love with radio dramas after hearing Orson Welles bring the night alive with the old 1938 War of the Worlds broadcast. He built a homemade microphone out of scrap metal and wires and practiced in his garage for hours. He tried out tough guy monologues and gritty lines until friends started saying he sounded like a real movie outlaw. It was only a game then, but that confidence became the backbone of the rugged voice millions would later recognize. At 17, he dropped out of school to work at a gas station, thinking it was the best way to help his family. One day in 1946, while fueling a faulty Model T Ford, the car exploded in front of him. Flames shot up, and he barely escaped with minor burns. A scar on his left arm stayed with him for the rest of his life. He hid it under long sleeves and carried the memory of how close he came to dying. The scare pushed him back to college with a stronger sense of purpose. He wanted more than dirty hands and dangerous jobs. He wanted something that gave him a way out. Back at Compton Junior College, he joined the drama club. In 1949, he landed the role of Biff in a student production of Death of a Salesman. The story of a broken family hit home, and he poured all his own hurt into the performance. The director, a former Broadway actor, was stunned by how raw he was. A talent scout visiting campus told him he had something rare and urged him to think about Hollywood. That night changed him. It made him believe that maybe his voice, his height, his presence, his pain, all of it could become something larger than the life he had known. His first paid acting job came when he was 19. He voiced drive and theater ads for $5 a session in 1947. He added little unscripted jokes and tough guy lines, and people stayed just to hear him. Theater managers started talking about the funny kid with the unforgettable voice. For James, that small paycheck felt like proof that he could build a future out of this strange new path. Then came the war years. In 1950, at age 22, he enlisted in the U.S. Army during the Korean War and trained at Fort Ord as a truck driver. He was so tall at 6 feet 5 inches that he often got posted as a lookout during drills. The muddy hills, the long hours, the heavy loads, all of it hardened him. That toughness followed him into his future action roles because he knew what real grit felt like. While stationed in Texas, he sometimes worked as a disc jockey for Armed Forces Radio. He played jazz records and slipped in cool, sarcastic comments between songs. Soldiers began calling him the velvet voice of the barracks. It became clear that his voice had a power that could lift people's spirits even in hard times. In 1951, during his assignment in Mainz, Germany, he was asked to narrate classified military training films. Spy activity was rising, and one night he hid film reels inside a false truck panel to avoid strangers who were checking vehicles. It was a tense moment, and the thought that someone might be trying to steal the films did not feel far-fetched at all. He carried that memory like a secret thread that later wove naturally into his cool, calm screen presence. During leave in 1952, he slipped into acting classes at the University of Texas and ended up performing Sky Masterson in a soldier's review of Guys and Dolls. Officers praised him, fellow soldiers cheered him on, and for the first time, he felt like acting could be more than a hobby. It could be a life. He was discharged in 1953 and returned home with a duffel bag full of dreams. He enrolled in UCLA's theater program and worked nights as a parking valet to pay tuition. Every car he parked belonged to someone living the life he wanted. Every script he studied pulled him a little closer. He kept pushing because he had already survived poverty, explosions, heartbreak, and war. Hollywood didn't scare him. Nothing really did. James Coburn's rise really began in 1956, when he stepped onto the off-Broadway stage for The Iceman Cometh. He played a drifter named Willie and threw himself into the role so hard that during one improvised knife fight, he nearly cut Jason Robards for real. The stage manager had to rush in and stop them before someone bled on the floor. Critics loved how raw he was, but backstage people whispered that he was too fearless for his own good. Coburn did not seem to care. He learned that a moment of wild honesty could stick in people's minds forever, even if it scared the cast. That energy lit a spark inside him and pushed him closer to Hollywood, where he knew the danger would only grow. By 1959, he stepped in front of a television camera for the first episode of The Twilight Zone. He almost skipped the audition because of stage fright, but once filming started, he loosened up and ad-libbed line after line until Rod Serling leaned forward and told everyone to keep rolling. Serling later said that Coburn's rough, unpredictable style gave the episode its edge and helped shape the mood of the entire series. That single moment turned Coburn from a stage actor who hoped for a chance into a screen actor who could command attention with nothing but his voice and a steady stare. A year earlier, things had gone very differently. In 1958, he auditioned for the role of Maggio in From Here to Eternity and snapped a prop rifle in half during his screen test. The break delayed shooting and annoyed the crew so much that the rejection came fast. Instead of giving up, he took the small Western pilot they offered him as a consolation prize. People whispered that he was clumsy, maybe unlucky, maybe too intense. He brushed it off and kept moving. The lesson stuck. One mistake could shut a door, but the next one might open wider if he kept showing up. Later that same year, he became a gunslinger sidekick on Have Gun Will Travel. He insisted on doing his own stunts and raced a horse across rough ground until he fell hard and sprained his wrist. He wrapped it, climbed back up, and finished the scene. The crew started calling him the toughest actor in Hollywood. That nickname followed him everywhere and slowly shaped the way he played tough men on screen. Not because he wanted to pretend, but because he already lived that way. By 1959, he got tangled in a contract fight that nearly stopped everything. Columbia Pictures wanted him for Face of a Fugitive, but the pay insulted him, so he refused. It almost cost him his career until his agent stepped in and fought for him. Coburn walked away with the role of Wit in Ride Lonesome instead, and that film turned into a quiet classic. He realized you could stand your ground in negotiations and still win a path forward. That confidence changed him. Then the heat came. Ride Lonesome shot in Death Valley where temperatures hit 120 degrees and sometimes higher. Crew members dunked their hats in cold water to survive the day. Coburn dehydrated himself twice, but would not stop for rest. He pushed through dizzy spells and kept walking through the dust until the director shouted, "Cut." That performance became a sign of who he was becoming, someone who would rather suffer than fake anything on camera. Everything exploded for him in 1960 when he played Britt, the knife thrower, in The Magnificent Seven. For the Apple scene, he used a real knife and came so close to Yul Brynner's ear that Brynner joked about it for years. The crew froze as the blade sliced the air. Coburn did not blink. The film, shot in Mexico, made over $8 million worldwide and pushed him into the spotlight. He even chose to co-produce the sequel instead of taking a higher salary because he wanted control. Hollywood noticed that he was not just another hired actor, but someone who understood the business. 2 years later, during Hell is for Heroes, He fought with Steve McQueen over close-up shots. The argument grew until fists flew, and production shut down for a full day. The fight turned into a strange kind of bond, and the two men became close friends. Their tension poured into the movie, giving it a gritty realism that made their scenes feel like they could explode at any second. In 1963 came The Great Escape, and Coburn pushed himself even further. He played the man who forged escape documents and learned real techniques from ex-prisoners of war. He trained with a German circus troupe for motorcycle stunts and crashed so hard he broke 2 ribs. He kept filming anyway. The production cost more than $3 million and became one of the most expensive British films of its time. Coburn's injuries were not acted. They ended up woven into the film's legacy as part of the story. That same year, he charmed the screen in Charade with Audrey Hepburn. His flirtatious lines were improvised, and tabloids began spreading rumors. The studio used those rumors to push him as a romantic lead, and the movie earned over $5 million. Coburn's mix of danger and charm made him unforgettable and helped him climb even higher in Hollywood. Things grew even wilder by 1966 with our man Flint. Coburn trained 3 weeks in judo and insisted on doing every stunt himself. During one brutal fight, he dislocated his shoulder and kept going. He rehearsed nearly 20 hours and did 15 takes for the final fight. Producers had never seen an actor so determined to take the hits. That movie turned him into a true action star. The next year, he was offered James Bond, but after reading the script, he told people it felt too British. Instead, he chose In Like Flint and added a nunchuck fight inspired by private lessons he took from Bruce Lee between 1964 and 1966. The scene filmed in 2 days and became iconic. Coburn believed that inventing his own path mattered more than taking over someone else's role. On What Did You Do in the War? Daddy, he drank real Sicilian wine on camera because the production ordered 50 cases for authenticity. A pie fight went wrong when the crew used industrial flour and covered him for 3 hours. He improvised until the director decided the chaos made the scene better. The gag cost the studio $12,000, but became one of the most memorable moments in the film. Then came Dead Heat on a merry-go-round in 1966. The production used actual Detroit airport blueprints leaked by insiders. Real employees even shared security details. The FBI quietly investigated the leak after the movie came out. Coburn worried he might get trapped in criminal roles, so he asked for a twist ending where his character gets caught. The realism drew attention and helping shape his reputation as someone who took risks on and off screen. In Waterhole No. 3, he shot in Monument Valley where coyotes raided the set's food supply. Coburn joked that the coyotes were his co-stars. He even pocketed a gold nugget worth $500 from the set and later donated it to a museum. The film cost $1.5 million and became known for its wild mishaps and Coburn's quick thinking during chaos. The danger kept rising in 1971 during Duck You Sucker, when he lit a fuse for a bridge explosion using real explosives. Up to 50 pounds were set near the bridge. The fuse misfired, and a small blast singed his mustache and eyebrows. Leone kept the footage because it looked too real to throw away. Coburn laughed later, saying the injury helped his character look like he had lived through fire. Then came Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid in 1973 with Sam Peckinpah. Arguments over the script and editing turned the set into a battlefield. Coburn even punched a producer during the Mexico shoot. The film ran 21 days behind and went $1.6 million over budget. Bob Dylan watched the chaos and used it to shape the sound of his score. Coburn's stubborn focus gave the film a haunting quality that still holds today. In The President's Analyst, Coburn played a psychiatrist caught in a world of paranoia. The movie angered government agencies because the plot mirrored real surveillance fears. The FBI looked into it and forced the studio to change the names of the agencies. Coburn even voiced 12 characters during dubbing. The backlash helped the film become a cult classic. During the Americanization of Emily the Water Tank for submarine scenes, malfunctioned and flooded too fast. Several extras nearly drowned. Production shut down and safety rules tightened. Coburn used the tension to give his character a mix of fear and charm that fit perfectly with the film's anti-war message. James Coburn married Beverly Kelly on November 11, 1959, after a fast spark at a Hollywood party where she was shooting photos and he was still trying to make his name. Their years together started with bright lights and long film sets, and by 1961, they were parents to James Jr. Lisa arrived in 1963, and the kids spent much of their childhood wandering around locations like the Magnificent Seven set in 1960, where they played between props while their father rehearsed scenes. Those early years felt full, but underneath the movement and travel, Beverly was raising the children mostly alone because Coburn spent long stretches away working. The family kept shifting homes, moving to new sets and new cities, while the pressure of fame kept pulling Coburn farther from the house. That slow pull created cracks that neither of them noticed until they had already grown too wide to ignore. By 1975, the cracks were almost impossible to hide. Coburn was shooting Bite the Bullet, and whispers spread that he was getting too close to Candice Bergen. Beverly felt it heavy because she had already carried years of missed birthdays and school events alone. They tried therapy, hoping they could bring the old spark back, but the sessions only showed how distant he had become. He was always tired, always focused on work, and always gone. The truth came out piece by piece. He was obsessed with his career and barely looked at the family life he was losing. After 20 years of marriage, they finalized their divorce in 1979, and the news stunned everyone because Coburn had always looked like the calm and steady family man on screen, even while he was falling apart at home. After the divorce, Coburn fell into a 4-year romance with British singer Lindsay DePaul. They made music together, writing blues songs in small studios, including I and the Blues for You, which they recorded in her London space. Fans were surprised to see the hard-edged actor singing blues beside her on stage. The relationship started warm, but turned rocky as Coburn slipped back into the same pattern. His filming schedule swallowed their time, and Lindsay felt like she was always waiting for him to come back from some distant set. In 1984, he canceled a European trip they had planned because he took a last-minute film job. That was the final break. Their split became a media storm as Lindsay spoke openly about how he always chose work over love. On October 22, 1993, Coburn married Paula Murad in Versailles. Around 100 people attended, including Robert Vaughn, and the place looked almost unreal with all the lights and old stone. Coburn said he finally felt settled. 2 years later, they created the James and Paula Coburn Foundation to help children with arthritis, because Coburn himself was fighting severe rheumatoid arthritis by then. The pain was so strong some mornings that Paula had to help him dress, yet he kept moving with her support beside him. The foundation raised millions for research, and Coburn often said Paula gave him the strength to face the illness that had nearly stopped his life and career. Behind all the glamour, Coburn carried family pain that went far deeper than the press ever saw. His son James Jr. fell into drug addiction in the 1980s, and Coburn stepped in with his usual tough tone, sending him to a strict rehab program when things got too dangerous. The recovery took time, and the struggle left marks on everyone, but James Jr. later found steady work in production. Lisa chose a different path. She followed Beverly into photography and built a name of her own. She often said that watching her father keep going through illness, disappointment, and long stretches of pain taught her how to stay steady in her own work. Coburn himself had started battling rheumatoid arthritis back in 1979 on the set of Firepower. He was 51 and woke up one morning with his hands swollen to twice their size. He hid painkillers in his trailer and wrapped his hands so they would not look twisted on camera. He even tried to hide it from Sophia Loren as they filmed scenes together. In a 1999 interview, he said the disease made him feel like he was turning to stone. Standing up made sweat run down his face. The pain stole his strength day by day and pushed him into a place he had never imagined he would reach. By 1985, the disease was so strong that he could barely button his shirts. He turned down roles, including one in Lethal Weapon, because he could not even hold a gun. For nearly 10 years, he stayed mostly inside his Beverly Hills home, working only through voiceovers and the occasional small role like High Risk in 1981. Friends wondered if he had disappeared from film altogether. Each day was a slow fight, and each step cost him energy he no longer had. In 1988, he tried experimental steroids just to feel relief. They gave him 20 pounds of sudden weight gain and fierce mood swings that sent him snapping at people who had never seen him angry before. He kept trying treatments from doctors and healers, even traveling to Mexico for herbal infusions that had no proven effect. He was desperate because the pain had taken control of everything. Years of failed treatments pushed him to gamble on anything that might give him even a little bit of his life back. By 1990, he was walking with a cane he sometimes hid as a prop. He told Bruce Lee years earlier that the pain made him think dark thoughts he could not share with anyone else. He said he felt like stone growing inside him. Each day became a test of will. He told himself he would fight it like the men he played on screen and kept pushing even when his body tried to stop him. Everything changed in 1996 when he discovered MSM supplements at a health expo. Within months, his pain eased enough for him to move freely for the first time in years. He tested himself by throwing knives again and hit the target right away. He told everyone who asked that MSM had given him his life back. Doctors questioned its effectiveness, but Coburn believed in what he felt. It allowed him to return to real acting again, and it opened the door to his comeback. In 1997, he filmed Affliction at age 69. It was freezing in Quebec, with temperatures dropping below -10 degrees Celsius, yet he insisted on doing his own stunts. He even outran Nick Nolte during a chase scene, though Nolte was 15 years younger. The budget was $6.3 million, and Coburn poured his whole spirit into the role. When he won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor in 1999, it felt like a quiet victory over the years the disease had stolen from him. His fierce nature pushed him into another storm in April 2000, when he went on Larry King Live and criticized the FDA for holding back MSM. He said it helped him, and he did not need studies to prove it. His comments shook the supplement world, caused lawsuits from companies that claimed he boosted competitors, and sparked debates about natural treatments. Coburn stood by every word and donated money from MSM work to arthritis research. Even with all the pain he carried, he still found the strength for roles that touched new generations. In Monsters, Inc., he voiced Henry J. Waternoose III with that deep, gravelly tone that took more than 150 recording sessions to perfect. In 2002, he played Thunderjack in Snow Dogs at age 73, racing through snow even when doctors warned him not to risk his hips. He died suddenly on November 18, 2002 in Beverly Hills, only hours after celebrating 9 years of marriage with Paula. He was 74. She said he passed away in her arms while they listened to music. His death shocked everyone because he had been active, working, and full of plans. Fans around the world felt the loss of a man who had pushed through every barrier life threw at him.